Once again, ask Staley. I'm joking. We don't talk about that man. He was cringe. Well, anywho, oh, I'm so sorry about that. Please forgive me. I came here to mention that, first of all, yes, I did actually stream. Second of all, oh God, I'm so sorry, guys. Just ignore whatever happened. Second of all, I've been thinking, since I didn't eat breakfast, neither lunch, I'm gonna just be doing this and eating absolutely nothing. Despite everything, luckily, my suicide rates have gotten down, but I don't really think about doing that to myself as often anymore. Maybe because of Kyosan Shugi, but not exactly. Kyosan Shugi is like the total opposite. You would actually want to do it because of the poverty you would be getting. There's more poverty and more worse rates in a communist country than anywhere else. Like, you see the people in North Korea, like, they clearly are living a nightmare. Like, even with that, and then just see parts of China, people are not living the best life. They have to literally work in a factory to make our cheap products, and they get paid almost nothing. And then on top of that, they gotta share that money with everyone else. So, in fact, it's the total opposite effect. And yes, I'm using my last drawing as a reference for the eyes, because I'm too lazy to actually sign myself up for a real deal. So, without a further ado, let's beast swarm this. First of all, what I like to do is just straight up make this line. I might add a bonus drawing into here just in the same video, only because I know you guys are kind of gonna be monking on me. And why do I say monk? Because monku means complaint in Japanese, but it also does mean monk, so monku is what I like to say. Like, if you're complaining, you're being a monk, because monku actually is monk, and it means complaint. I learned that a while ago, and I mean, I do hear it quite often, only when people are talking about complaints, so the answer is pretty obvious. And actually, you don't say monku suru, no, you actually say monku iu. Monku iu, because you actually say a complaint. You don't do a complaint, you say a complaint, which actually makes sense. So, monku iwareta would actually make more sense than saying monku shita. It would actually make more sense. So you actually say a complaint, not do a complaint. So that's why it doesn't use the verb for doing, and instead it rather uses the verb for saying, because you say complaints. Kind of like how when we say it rains, they say the rain falls. And there's just a lot of verbs that kind of do this, like you polish your teeth, not brush them. These kinds of weird verbs that kind of switch up the words. But they do make more sense, though. Like what I just said, saying a complaint is actually what that basically is. If I were you, though, would you actually say a complaint? Yes, he would. And despite everything, he actually did say a complaint like a real monk would. And why do they call them monks? Because it just happens to be the two characters that mean complaint when combined. The first character actually by itself means sentence, and the other character, I actually don't know much about it unless it's within that one word. So Mon by itself actually is read differently and has a totally different character. And all it means is gate. It's literally, it just means a gate. So, as in one of my divisions called Kunimon, it's actually known as the International Gate or the Country Gate of Cheaper World, but it should be known as the International Gate of Cheaper World, the International Gate, as it literally translates to Nation Gate. So it's actually Kunimon is actually the Nation Gate. So in Cheaper World, because Cheaper World shares the same language but does have a different reading system, it's known as Kunimon, and it got its name because it technically is the gateway to the other continent. And by the way, this is just a made-up world map I did. And then it's also technically connected. It's also technically the biggest state and does have a giant river-like bridge, which is why it's called Kunimon, because it's the country's gate to another continent or to its closest neighbor. From the center of Cheaper World's actually closer to Suida, to the capital of Cheaper World. Cheaper World's actually closer to Suida than any other country, and this is practically true, as to go to any other nation, as in New Okami as in New Cheapo and all these other nations that I made up, they're actually way further from the real Cheaper World. And they all take a long time because they're not as close within the state capital. But the capital of Cheaper World, however, practically has a shorter distance to countries like New Cheapo and Zaibobia, rather than Suida, due to their far distances to the actual capital. Because if you take a map, you would need to go to around 2 USAs and 1 Canada, or around 2.5 Russias, as in wide, not in tall, wide, to get all the way to the other side of Cheaper World, from the most western point all the way to the most eastern point of Kunimon. You have to go all the way there just to get to the other side of Cheaper World, meaning it would be an estimate of half of the world's equator you would need to get to the other side of Cheaper World, which is crazy. And this truly tells you how far Cheaper World stretched and why they still controlled such a large territory. Because when they used to be a republic, they actually controlled a lot of territory. Now, I am going to disclaim this is all made up geography I made myself, because, I'm obsessed with geography. I'm that one guy who just loves to see country shapes. I even know Nippon's geography. I know my own country's geography and Nippon's geography, or Nihon, or Japan's geography. It kind of has like a shape of a... And I do think Karufuto or Sakhalin, Russia, should be a part of them, just because it's just an area that would look perfect on the map. And they would still share no borders, because they are one of the only Asian nations that share no borders, which means... which means there's absolutely no border issues with the nations. Meanwhile, for Cheaper World, so if you were to take this, Cheaper World, let's just say, had only half the size, so around 138 million square meters were a part of Cheaper World. That in total would just be enough to cover at least 2, 4, 6, 8, 6, 8, yeah, 6, 8, 2, 4, 6, 8, okay, 2, 4, 6, 8, okay, and then double that, it would be enough to cover 2 US plus Canada areas, or around 20 US plus Canada areas, and it would also need, and you could also fit an entire extra amount of Australia in it. That was how big the Republic of Cheap World was at the time. It had a lot of vast territory, and with width, they were definitely way wider, and technically their most western point wasn't there, but it still did equivalent to 2 USAs and 1 Canada in width. And yes, it technically is. And it did still equivalent to 2.5 Russias. So yes, Cheap World would have, in the Dog World, ended up being the widest country ever in the area. Its land size alone could definitely cover half of the world's land area in the Dog World. It could cover all of the continent of Caridado, Liouch, and a little bit more of the south of Hosunmen, all combined in one. This is why many did get mad at Cheap World for actually owning so much land area, because they now had officially controlled more land area than any other country. And, well, they knew they were going to put that to use, as countries like Right Inaka tried attacking Cheap World, but actually failed miserably and had to give up a lot of their territories. Many countries tried invading Cheap World, but it's just impossible. And the worst part is, unfortunately, the country of Cheap World is not capitalist. Despite it being in the Dog World, they don't have capitalist ideas. So, ironically, all the neighboring countries, except New Chipo and, of course, Right Inaka, all knew that this one communist nation would just be a huge problem, because it now would control more than half of the continent, and it would be a dominant power. Unfortunately, it did become a dominant power and took over most of the continent. As before, the rest of the world was bigger than Cheap World, but now Cheap World is bigger than the rest of the world in the Dog World. Which this isn't even including the Liouch territory and other places that are actually owned by Cheap World as well. This is just including the mainland. And during Cheap World's imperial times of owning Liouch, we definitely can say they were bigger than the rest of the world. The rest of the world was just such a smaller place, and Cheap World owned way more of it. Basically, the history begins like this. Firstly, a leader enters and a general enters to control the lands of the new continent, controls the lands of the continent Bruno discovered, as Bruno is busy doing other things. Then later on, they bring their colonies into parts and on lots of parts of air. Pegesk was never invaded, as they never saw it as a threat, but just stayed neutral with them. They weren't allies, but they weren't enemies at the same time. The Pegeskians, of course, expanded far into new territory. But of course, Cheap World expanded far into new territory, accidentally taking some southern territory with it, mistaking it as northern territory, as, well, they had already attacked the country and won it, so why not keep it? So they did. Later on, Cheap World's expansion came to be that they would only take countries really anywhere around Shulyu and Barkingstill, which is what made it shape and 2 countries completely surrounded by Cheap World. Later on, well, not surrounded because they had a coast, and each of them shared one border with each other, so yeah. And eventually, though, the 2 nations were taken over after the Revolutionary War of becoming from a republic into a complete powerful country. They were only called a republic as they were really known as far expansionists that really kept their shape for a while, and this was actually true, as Cheap World didn't own most of Hosunmen before, and vice versa. They actually owned less of Hosunmen than the rest of the countries. and right Inaka was still having wars with left Inaka, as in of territorial disputes, but they can't have wars in the Darien River as it would be very hard. But it is still a very disputed area due to its rich areas despite its dangers. Quick story of the Darien River. The Darien River came in cheap. It's called the Darien River because back in Hosunmen, when the Darien River was discovered by the people of Inaka, before they became split, they actually saw this river and actually realized as many people died trying to pass through it to get to the other side, and then they eventually ended up finding a way around it, uniting the area into one. And the people of Inaka discovered this river, and it was one of the most dangerous, which gave it the Darien River. But the reason why the two countries split was pretty obvious. Left and right Inaka were both communist and capitalist, and this split came to be because of the Wolfington Empire making one side more influenced by communism while the other side stayed capitalist. And because of this, a civil war broke out, and right Inaka won most of the land area, as more communists were actually concentrated on the coast. So left Inaka became landlocked, less population, less people, and a smaller military, but squeezes survival thanks to alliances. The communist side has more land area, obviously, a larger economy, and of course, more people and a larger army as well. They have the coast while left Inaka doesn't. The only river they have is the Darien River, and it is, actually, there is an unknown border for this. There is no official borders for the Darien River, but the claims are still well unknown, so it's usually split 50-50 within the rest of the world, but both countries claim the Darien River as theirs. As we know, though, the Darien River is the natural borders between left and right Inaka until we get into the disputed areas, which those areas really have a hard time being shown, because if you do give the country the wrong areas, you might get one side offended. So anyways, yeah, that's the story of the Darien River. So Cheaper World's size is truly impressive, as they managed to do this as Emperor Wolfegist, still the leader of Cheaper World, managed to actually force a lot of the land area under his control. Well, looks like a background character. Until skill issue. You can definitely tell this character, they just straight up made it a, they just straight up wanted to save money on this character and make her identity anonymous. Just like that one Anonymous M song from, like, a Miku Anonymous M song, like when they used black out, obviously when we obviously knew what she looked like. I'm pretty good at interpreting what a character's eyes would look like, and I think I do that pretty well. So, let me know down in the comments if you think this is what she would look like if she just cut off that big ass, that big bangs that bro has. If bro cuts her big bangs, then probably that is what she would look like. A lot of times I like to say the big A-word forehead, but that is kind of true, because, you know, you can actually get from South America all the way to New York quicker than the other side of KSI's forehead. It's actually true. Because if I try to pass through that forehead, I'm not going anywhere. That forehead's way too big. You know, honestly, if you try to give KSI a haircut, you would be flying to space with that. It's impossible to get there with that giant forehead. You know, I honestly don't find it easy to roast other people, so I do just pass on roasting other people, but honestly, this is kind of true. I am technically doing this drawing video while I'm hungry, so this might look a little bad. Long story short, I did not eat breakfast or lunch, so that's on me. RIP my stomach! I'm not an Asian child, I'm just kidding. I just don't want to eat whatever's in the fridge, and I'm waiting when I can get McDonald's or McDonald's or Maku. Crap, my battery's going low, man. I swear, though, I should have charged it last night, but stupid me wanted to sleep instantly. I woke up at 9 and did absolutely nothing, and had absolutely nothing for breakfast. You know, this actually is low-key an accurate example of what her eyes would look like. I'm trying to not make this look like wolves versus cats, but I'm also noticing, thanks to my device's brightness, I'm now not able to basically see it, so I'm gonna have to lower down my brightness here to see it better. Alright, I'm gonna just do the first eye just so that I get an idea of what it looks like. Yeah, Shakono, do not sue me for this one. Shakono, I'm just doing what I love. Modifying your characters. Did you know that what I'm doing is just basically making a concept? Wow! Look at the concept! Despite Bro being very shy, I don't think this. I don't think. Look, if they give Karane the chest, then I would actually be happier. But no, they of course had to give the most shyst and anonymous one. Nah, Camaria. Nah, Hyokono. You really had to give it to her. Not even Karane or you know. They know why they made Karane flat. There's a reason why she's flatter in the Minecraft world. There's a reason for that. Nani? Does it look more like a wolves versus cats concept, or does it actually look like something they would make? I think the thing that makes this a little bit off is the fact that she does look dang too young. No Diddy. That's not what I meant. You know, would have it just been faster for me to just straight up do this video? Damn it. Wow, 5% really does last a long time. Because my battery got drained quickly. You know, I'm edging my device's battery to do this video. You know, honestly, it isn't necessary for me to do this, but, unnecessary inventions. Guy. I understand why I rarely post is because I can't even say rarely. We're just so low attention span that we don't consider that. Like, where is, like, 7 months or 6 months, like, 6 months ago, like 1 to 2 years of not posting. That is a long time. Or like not posting 7 years ago and then posting, like, now that's a long time. But then 1 month or 3 weeks, come on man. I mean, that's pretty relevant, that's pretty close. But not for these storytime animators. Just use a VTuber model and get it and giddy done. Because VTuber models are the best, except when they rig. And, well, the community. And I still do not understand why they give her such a massive size, man. Like, brother! Well, Hakari-san uses it for the wrong things, but at least she has a conscience to not do that. Despite the size, at least she has a conscience and doesn't do sus stuff. But that still doesn't mean the creators of Shakuno know what they were doing. Shakuno, I want you to get some balls. This is technically detail. Trust me, I know what I'm doing. Yo cheapo. You know, this honestly does look like a nice interpretation, except her mouth is wrong. Yep, you saw that going. Moai. I got the sauce. I don't know what that cringe ad was, but honestly, there's like all, you know, if I'm yapping, you know why? I'm dang hungry. If I'm yapping, I'm dang hungry, boys. And I am not eating. Yeah. Not eating doesn't always mean you burn calories. No. Because if you overeat, boom. You know, this fat kid that I used to talk to, she allegedly had an eating disorder where she doesn't eat and then gobbles up like a skibbity toilet. Like, really? Hey, Avi, I'm not believing a single kotoba that is coming out of her kuchi. I think and no, it's not kuchi as in a gyat. Kuchi actually means mouth in Japanese, and I will write it down here, and here is the hiragana, and here is romaji, and here's the imi, or the meaning. Here you go. It doesn't mean yacht, alright? Alright, anywho, shoot, let's get to the real deal. I got the Nah, and this fat kid claimed that she had an eating disorder. Yeah, shut up. I'm not gonna believe that. I didn't believe that before GTA 6 releases, and I will not believe it when GTA 6 releases. I'm not gonna believe your crap, fat kid. And I can say, I wish I knew her exact address so I could just straight up leak it to be a menace. But I know some of her address. She lives in Carmel, New York. I don't even know if that's a real place, but that's allegedly where she lives. And, well, she's an hour away from New York City. And, well, her true name is, I forgot. Josephine, I don't know. Well, whatever, that's cringe kid. I don't even want to know how bro's doing now. You know, long ago, I was like, I don't want to renraku anymore, and you get out, you leave, and get out! I don't want to contact some cringe kid that has no... Ara. Oh, bikkuri. Ara. Why? Nande, konna mune. Oh, I'm joking. I'm not busting my streak to that. Hey, Avi, I've never gone to Hyakano, and I won't. I won't do it, because at least I have some respect. Like, respect, man. Do not goon to that. Okay, I'm joking. Do whatever you want. Honestly, I understand if it is something like gooner-like material. I understand where you're coming, man. Honestly, I don't care. Go ahead. Bust it. Go everywhere. Okay. Anywho, shoot, though. Kami no ke wa dekoboko. Kami no ke wa dekoboko. Kami no ke wa dekoboko. And then, by the way, when I heard the song, like, of Tanuki, Miku Tanuki song, like, you know, like the same creator of Lemon Melon Cookie, or the P song, or the like Uchino Ora Bimu Pyong 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 Pyong, you know that song? Well, that same creator made this song, like, I don't know, that had like Miku Tanuki in it, and then I was like, you know what, do 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 do, so it's like do 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 do, himitsu da yo, chiki chiki ju, chiki chiki ju, chiki chiki dekaboko bum bum. Yeah, I did dekaboko instead of like Chiki Choco, like, so whatever the other lyrics were, I did Dekoboko because it rhymed. So I was like, Chiki Dekoboko bum. Also, the reason why I know how to roll my R's is thanks to a Japanese R being very close to a Spanish R, because Spanish R and Japanese R are actually very close to each other. English R is just straight up no. English R is nowhere close to the two. So if you want to say da boo boo, I'm just giving an example because I know that toy's cringe, but da boo boo, then you would do da 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 da, kind of mixed with an L R. It's like its own sound, but it's mixed in between an L and R. But then if you want to roll, you can do da 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 da, but then you go and you go bum 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 brr, up in the mouth, like bum 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 bum. So that's when I say ara or ara. I use my rolling R's, as Kobo-san kind of used. I know, as Kobo kind of used her R's on that. Like, she had, even the Indonesian VTuber has rolling R's, which is kind of crazy. Like, ara, and you're like, ara, and you use rolling R's instead. Well, honestly, I don't really mind anybody using rolling R's, because even I use it myself to make ara out of an R, so, yeah. Ara is not a meme, it's more like something you say. So if you go 6-7, then cow! Because I don't want to hear that in my house. That's such a cringe meme. In fact, I'm banning those two numbers to be seen. If I find you playing that meme in my house, I'm kicking you out. Unless you give me money. But even with that, I don't like the meme. It's not funny, it's cringe and just straight up stupid. I can work on the hair details later. The thing I need to work on is her. No, I can't really make the full body because I kind of took over the canvas a little, so rip. And this is also a concept artwork, so this is like what she would look like without that Mae Kami covering her hair. And, well, let's just say we have a lot of relations of what hair can do. If you know sussy bakas, you know that hair is just one of the worst things you can think of when it comes to... I'm joking, boys. And yes, technically that is how they edge scenes. Like, that's how you edge your demonetizations. Because did you know that apparently Hyokono is rated MA in the US? Yeah. RIP. Yeah, boys, that should just tell you. Personally, I do not like how they act. I just think the character designs are dang cool, like, brother. I do not know how my, this one guy that obviously comments on my channel a lot, and, you might see him in the comments today as well. But that one guy, when I say, like, he's pretty chill with me drawing Hyokono, and honestly, he does watch the drawing videos. Damn, why did she have to have such a large chest? Damn, Hyakuno, why do you give her the buff? It's like they give the King Chol characters the best. Well, all the good characters like Karane and I understand Shizuka because age gap. Yeah, that does make sense. Cause no Diddy, we don't do that here. But Meido-sama could have gotten that instead. But I'm gonna sing a monk or a complaint or a monku you. I gotta say, to not give her that weight, that size, is kind of diabolical, man. Like, just imagine your favorite character, Meido-sama, then she ends up actually getting nerfed. Now, she still does have some, not gonna lie, but it's just underneath all that Meido clothing. So that Meido Fuku is, underneath that Meido Fuku, it actually has all of that waist. But dang, boy, why did they give her the size? I'm not, Ada. Yeah, my cousin hates me for saying ara all the time, and he also hates me for doing dai sugi no hodo tomaranai. That one song in his ears, it's like, oh, it's so loud. You know what? Suck it up, man. You suck it up. I don't care. Because guess what? Sonic Rouge the Bat is also like that too. Ha! Yeah, technically, yeah, Sonic Rouge the Bat, they knew what they were doing with that, but the only reason why it's still fine is because of our casual culture. But honestly, they were edging it, and well, my cousin, yes, he dang likes Sonic. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, no. In fact, I support him, and I used to like Sonic too, so I support him on that, in fact. Like, W, man. I mean, it's pretty Sigma. So do not hate or criticize people that like Sonic, unless they're sussy bakas. Then yeah, just go ahead and hihan them, because we do not like sussy bakas here. Tokuni bokumo. Yeah, tokuni bokumo, yeah. So yeah. Tokuni. Ara. Mada tabenakatta na. じゃあ、行こうかな。あら。そんな胸大きなな。あら。だね。ですわ。Yeah, Kimo. That is just straight up cringe. Kimo. Straight up cringe. Cringe. Desu wa. Yeah, I do not have that voice. I am not a Hyakano voice actor. Kick me out. Say get out! Type get out in the comments. I am not a Hyakano voice actor. Rentaro even has a better voice than me. You know, Aijo Rentaro even has a better voice than me. And I do not know why I would say that perfectly. Aijo Rentaro. Or Yoshimoto Shizuka. Aijo Rentaro. Hahari-sama. Or Hahari Hanazono. And then, well, there's Natty as the American one. Yeah, by the way, guys, I kind of went a little controversial and actually drew communism on the American Hyakano, the American Kanojo, and that actually was controversial. I think somebody ends up because of that, because, I mean, there's a lot of people who don't like communism, and that's including me. I just do it because, you know, Cheaper World's communist. Sorry, but it's kind of true, because Cheaper World is owned by cheapos, and Bruno just has a communist mindset, because that's how he makes all his money. Greedy wolves do anything. Yeah, and, you know, a lot of times, especially, like, many countries that revolutionized over Russia, they did not like communist Russia, and I would agree with them too, because instead of it being more peaceful than the Tsar, it actually was worse. Instead of them getting peace because they're finally free from Nicholas II in Russia, instead they ended up getting a worse life. I mean, the Soviets absolutely got crushed. I mean, honestly, I would rather have Imperial Russia rather than communist Soviets. Like, I know you would lose Finland and all of those territories, but at least you wouldn't lose Kazakhstan or major territories that made up your land. Like, Kazakhstan has quite a good amount of oil, NGL. And you will get more access to the Caspian Sea, and you would be able to control more of the Middle East a bit better. Also, you would actually be able to do a lot more things if you were to at least keep your lands. And on top of this, guys, we all know communist is not good, because when Fidel Castro took over Cuba, at first it looked well, but then eventually everybody kind of hated it. And, well, luckily I don't live in Cuba, but to those who know, people couldn't say anything or they would get killed, you know? They would get killed if they said anything. So, I know in a real-life perspective, no, I don't agree with communism. But in a cheaper world and fantasy perspective, of course. But in real life, I don't agree with it, because China and all these countries, and I think the worst one to live into is North Korea. Those countries, they are very bad conditions, and honestly, nobody wants to live there, but they have to. And plus, Kim Jong-un's completely quesoed, and Xi Jinping, or whatever his name is, he's a bit quesoed. And yeah, I don't think those are good countries. Despite Russia not being communist, they are still not very good, because they've done wars with Ukraine, and they've done a lot of not so good things, even giving up communism. So keep in mind, just because they're not communism doesn't mean they're still not a good country. I mean, Russia's got kind of a bad reputation with everyone. And plus, most people don't live in the Siberian area. Like, nobody loves to live in the cold, including me. You know, I'm honestly feeling more hungry than wanting to draw, but I have to because of you guys. My tablet's on its last leg of being 3%, man. You better like and subscribe, though. So anyways, enough about the political stuff. Yeah. Chuck Connell is still what I'm working on. And dang, she got a good size there, though. Like, Nah, no Diddy. I'm not gonna get freaky about it, though. I'm not gonna get all freaky with oil like the werewolf did in Bee Swarm Simulator. She got a very large size, man. My cousin personally hated me watching Chuck Connell or doing Chuck Connell. It's just like, oh my god, bro. My cousin. Hold on, guys. You know what? I know the drawing's not finished, but I promise you I'll put it on the thumbnail and maybe do an extra post to show the full deal. But goodbye.